Howdy, and welcome to this video tutorial on how to set up and operate an Oxy-Fuel cutting torch. Now, before we get started, we first need to go over a few items of safety. The most important thing to know whenever using the torch is to make sure that you keep long hair and jewelry, sleeves, make sure your shirt's tucked in, just keep anything tied up and out of the way that could possibly fall into the path of the flame as you're bent over cutting. The second most important thing that you need to remember is that the flame gets very hot and very bright. So for this reason, it is important to have shaded lens for eye protection. Now, preferably, you would want something like this, a shield, that would not only protect your eyes with the tinted lens, but would also be a blockade for any sparks or kerf that may try to come in contact with your face or your neck. However, goggles such as these would also be adequate when using the cutting torch. You also want to make sure that you're wearing gloves, and particularly gloves made out of a material that is not conducive to burning or catching on fire, such as cotton or leather. These gauntlet gloves work great because they give you a little added protection on your forearm as you're using the torch. Now, when it comes to clothing, you want to make sure that you're wearing materials similar to your gloves that are not conducive to catching on fire or burning. Materials such as cotton and denim work excellent. You want to stay away from polyesters and things like that while you're using the torch. Now, you also want to make sure that anytime you're in a shop, you have safety glasses on, and conveniently they can be worn under your face shield. Now, moving over here to the cylinders here and the torch rig. We have an oxygen, we have fuel, which is in this case acetylene. We have hoses coming from each to the handle of the torch. We have the handle here, and then we have the tip here. Now this is a two-piece torch so that tips can be interchanged. Some of them are just one piece, but this one in fact is two-piece. And so we have here the cutting torch tip on it. Some other tips that can come on it is a rosebud tip that would be used for heating up metal, and also your welding tip that could be used for brazing, soldering, and things like that. But today we're just going to focus on the cutting torch, which we already have here hooked up and ready to go. So you'll notice on these two-piece torches, there are three knobs. You have a knob here, a knob here, a knob here, and then you also have a handle. Now, it is important to know whenever you get ready to operate these that the colors of the hoses do indicate something very important. The green hose is for oxygen. The red hose is for fuel, or in this case, acetylene. You might hear me use that term interchangeably, fuel and acetylene, because most of the time on a cutting torch, your fuel is acetylene. So we have a knob here that's directly above the oxygen hose, so therefore that regulates the amount of oxygen or the flow of oxygen that's coming into your torch. Right under it, we have a knob that is directly above the red hose, which is your fuel hose. So common sense would tell you that that knob regulates the flow or the amount of fuel that you have coming into your torch. Up here at the very top is a second oxygen regulator. So this would be used to additionally regulate the flow of oxygen. And your handle here is used for your oxygen only when you're cutting. So whenever you push it down, you hear a loud sound. That's a jet stream of oxygen coming down that oxidizes that metal and enables the torch to cut it just a little bit better and get through the material. So that's kind of a short breakdown of the different parts of your torch and the different valves. Now, regarding the cylinders, you have your oxygen cylinder here that is going to have anywhere between 1800 and 2200 psi when it is full. So we're talking about a whole lot of pressure here. We need to make sure that we're very careful and very purposeful about how we operate and turn on and off this cylinder. The acetylene isn't as dangerous pressure-wise. But the problem or the concern that we could run into with the acetylene is that over 15 psi working or line pressure, acetylene becomes very unstable. So we need to make sure that we never run our pressure, our line pressure, above 15 psi. Now, whenever we get ready to turn these cylinders on, there are two different ways that we turn each on, and there's a reason why we do that. Firstly, we have acetylene here. And with acetylene, we want to make sure that our regulator is turned all the way out, that it's all the way open. Now, we do that because with there being so much pressure in the bottle for acetylene, anywhere from 150 to 200, we don't want all of that pressure hitting that regulator all at one time. So we're going to open the regulator all the way up where it is not doing any work. We'll simply crack the cylinder, let it pressure up, and then we only want to turn it about 1 turn or 2 flicks of the wrist. Now the reason that we do that is because in case of an emergency, or if we need to turn the fuel off, we won't be standing here all day turning and turning and turning. We can simply, just in a matter of seconds, get that cylinder turned off, cut the fuel off away from the torch, and be able to, if we need to. Now, once we have the cylinder turned on 1 full turn, we're going to come over here to the regulator, and we're going to simply turn it on. We're going to twist it till we get to about 5 psi. In between 4 and 5 is plenty of pressure. You should not need any more pressure than that when working the acetylene cylinder. Now, we'll come over here to the oxygen cylinder. Now, as I said with the oxygen cylinder, we're working with anywhere from 1800 to 2200 psi. And so that's a great deal of pressure, and we need to make sure that we are being extremely careful and purposeful as we're turning off and on the oxygen cylinder. So the first thing that you want to do, which I did not address over there, is you never want to stand directly in front of the regulator. In case you did not have the regulator all the way open or something else happened and that regulator blew from the pressure, you would not be wanting to stand right here with your face in front of it. You want to stand to the side. That way, if it does blow off, that you're not in the direct path of that now projectile. So whenever you're opening and closing the oxygen cylinder, you want to do it in the same manner that you do the acetylene, and that you want to make sure that your regulator is all the way open, and in this case it is, and you know that just because it'll be loose. And so you'll be able to move it back and forth very easily, and you'll know that it's not under any load. The second thing that you'll want to do is crack your cylinder just barely and let that regulator come up. And then you'll want to go ahead and open your oxygen cylinder all the way up. Now this is a double-seating valve in here in this stem. So you'll want to make sure that it's all the way open and seated. And when it gets tight, you know you're there. Then you'll want to take your regulator and you'll want to turn it until you get to about anywhere from 18 to 20 psi is ideal. You shouldn't need much more than that to cut what you'd be cutting in an ag mech shop. So now that we have our cylinders correct, we will pick up our torch, hold down the hammer, make sure that, or the lever, the oxygen lever, and make sure that our oxygen is feeding the correct way that we want it to do. And we are now ready to go ahead and get started with showing you how to light your torch. But before doing so, let us first put on our safety equipment. So I have my face shield here. I'm going to go ahead and put on my gloves. Now there are some that will contest that as you're using your torch, that the hand that you're using to guide your torch, to hold your torch, doesn't need a glove. That you only need a glove on the hand that you're using to brace your torch. I disagree with that. I think it's a good practice, especially in ag mechanic classrooms with high school students, that they have gloves on both hands. You can never be too safe, in my opinion. So I go ahead and wear both gloves, and we'll go. Now that we are ready to light our torch, we will first start by making sure that our bottom oxygen valve is all the way open, that our acetylene is all the way closed, and that our actual oxygen regulating valve is all the way closed. We will then crack the acetylene valve very slightly, and using a non-flammable, non-fuel source striking lighter, we will light the torch. Once we have a flame, you will notice a lot of black smoke. That is carbon that is burned off, and we will want to make sure that we reduce that by burning with a neutral flame of equal parts oxygen and equal parts acetylene. So now that we have a flame started, we will increase our acetylene levels until the flame is just pulling off the tip of the torch. About right there. Then we will increase the oxygen. You will see that there's a feather in the center of that flame. We will increase the oxygen until it just takes away that feather. We will hit our lever, take away any little feather that might be there, and then we're ready to cut. So we want to make sure that we have our face shield in place. You'll want to brace yourself. And when you get ready to cut, you'll want to make sure that you heat up the edge of the metal first. Once you got a good glow, then you can depress your lever and cut through the metal. And there you have a cut. Now when you get ready to turn off your torch, you will first want to cut off the acetylene. Then you'll want to cut off the oxygen. And you can just leave this lower oxygen valve turned on if it's a two-piece valve, and you have it turned off the top one. So now whenever you get ready to turn off your cylinders, you'll just simply turn off the cylinder. See how long it's taken me to cut the oxygen off versus the acetylene. That's why we only open it just a little bit in case we need to get it cut off fast. Then you can open your acetylene valve and decrease your oxygen lever, and that will go ahead and bleed the lines, which is a good idea to do. Then you can simply back out your regulators, and you're ready for the next person to use it or ready for the next job. I hope that you've enjoyed watching this video, and I hope that you learned a little something.